Hey, welcome to New Wine Church. We're glad you found us here online and on YouTube, where we post all of our sermons and our sermon series as we go. Right now, we're just at the beginning of a new sermon series. We're in week 2 of the questions of Jesus. So join us this week as we look at Jesus' question to a man who needed healing for 4 decades. And his question was, do you want to be well? So join us this Sunday. If you'd like to ever join us in person, you can find us at 484 Water Street at 4 p.m. in this sanctuary. We hope to see you, and thanks for joining us.
It had been 38 years since he first started noticing signs. At first, he didn't notice them, and then he started just denying them. I can't be sick. This can't be happening. I'm sure it's nothing. Deny, deny, deny. The tingles in his feet moved their way up his calves, and he lost considerable strength, making it hard to walk. And then the tingles turned into numbness and then swelling, and it continued to move up his legs into his thighs and finally his hips. And it was now hard to stand, and he could hardly do anything without someone's help. The doctors didn't have answers. His prayers seemed to fall flat. He couldn't work. He stopped enjoying life, and his family no longer knew how to care for him or what to do with him. So one day, someone suggests the pool. And not just any pool, but a pool in the heart of the city. This giant, shallow pool in a courtyard of a giant colonnade. It's a beautiful place, but it's also the place of possibility. You see, this pool has been known to have healing powers. It's believed that every so often, an angel comes down from heaven to stir the water, and when that happens, there is healing power for a moment in the water. So as you can imagine, a large number of people who are sick and injured, paralyzed, blind, have come to this pool for its healing properties in hopes that they will experience a miracle. The caveat, however, is that the healing only works for the first person into the pool after the water's stirred. This means that the edge of the pool is lined with people sitting and waiting for their opportunity to come. Some have been there a day or so, and others have been there for years, still waiting their turn. And some are able to walk, others are not. Some have friends with them who carry them into the pool, and some still lie there all alone. But when the angel descends and the water stirs, there's an uproar from the crowd and a mad dash and splash after splash into the pool. Each time, have I been healed? Who got the healing? Am I better? Or do I still have to wait? So unfortunately, not everyone can be healed. One person's miracle is 99 others' continued frustration. It's equal opportunity for all, but it isn't equitable. If you can run and see, your chances of getting into the pool are quite high. If you can walk and see, your chances are still good. If you can walk but you can't see, it's a little harder, but it's doable. And if you can't walk, it's considerably more difficult. But if you have people who can help you, right, your chances just went up. But if you're on your own and you can't walk, your chances of receiving this healing are really low. What this place needs is a system, right? Like at least a take a number system so that no matter the ailment, everyone gets a chance. It turns out it's actually pretty cutthroat. And if you're not first, you're last. Now imagine you've been suffering from paralysis in your legs for almost 4 decades and waiting for a healing at this pool for much of it, with no one to help you get to the water. Can you imagine what this would do to your psyche? Of being left there by your family, already feeling like a burden, only to be at the doorstep of healing and never get it. Instead, you watch person after person jump ahead of you in line and get the healing they desire, and here you are, left behind. This man suffers not only from his ailment and his inability to walk, but after all these years now suffers from isolation, lack of agency, and likely a lack of a trust in God. I mean, if an angel of the Lord only stirs the water every so often, this is a very stressful and unpredictable situation. Therefore, likely in his mind, that means an unpredictable God. He's in a bad place physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. There is no equity, and he lives without agency. On top of that, it's a festival week this week in Jerusalem, so everyone and their mother's uncle is in town. People who live way out have come and descended on the city, which means even more people are looking to be healed by the pool. And they've taken up seats along the water's edge, and his chances just got slimmer. And we don't know how Jesus learns about this man's story, but he's well known enough around the colony that others know his story, and the story is shared with Jesus. Jesus learns how long he has been unable to walk and how long he's been waiting at the pool, and in Jesus' compassion, he approaches this man. And he kneels down beside him and he asks him what seems like an almost offensive question. Do you want to be well? What would have been your response? Annoyed? I mean, let's look at this man's response. He says, "Sir, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water's stirred. And when I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." What do you hear? Excuses, defeat, self-pity, unbelief, and maybe a little callous. That's what I hear. You know, sometimes in our ailments and in our addictions, the things that drag us down and weigh heavy on us, right? The issue is not always just the ailment or the addiction itself, but it's the way it makes us feel and think about ourselves. Sometimes the bigger issue becomes us, right? Our mentality and our relationship to the issue and the lies we begin to believe about ourselves because of them. I can't help it. I guess I'm just too weak. I don't have anyone to help me. I'm not worthy of help. I'm not worthy of love. Have you heard people or yourself ever say something like that? It turns out Jesus' question to the man is also a question about agency. Jesus doesn't ask him why he hasn't been healed yet. He simply asks him if he wants to be well. Jesus wants to hear for himself this man's faith and heart. And then he doesn't bring the man into the water. Instead, with his words, he says, "Get up, pick up your mat and walk." Jesus speaks healing and speaks agency and speaks it in compassion. Jesus reveals the loving and gracious image of God versus the unpredictable and ungracious image of God he likely has. Jesus takes this man beyond magical thinking and a mentality of being miserably unfortunate and unlucky and shows him the God who sees and hears and touches and heals. I don't know what it was for the man, but in all of his sorrow and unbelief, in this moment, he has a moment of faith. He feels like life restored to his legs, and somehow, despite any atrophy that's come from his inability to walk, he stands up and walks. At the words of Jesus, he is quite literally walking by faith. In a moment, his legs and his independence restored, his agency returned, his way forward bright and full of possibility. What's the first thing he's going to do with his new life, you think? Maybe walk home and show his family, take himself to the beach or go shopping. I don't know. Maybe walk up to Jesus and say thanks. Now, we don't know exactly what he did next, but he doesn't thank Jesus. In fact, one of the first things Scripture says he ends up doing is having a conversation with some of the religious leaders, whom I'm guessing saw or at least heard about what had happened and wanted to know more. So they not only wanted to know more, but when they heard that Jesus had not only healed on the Sabbath, but also a rabbi ordered another person to carry their mat, do work on the holy day of rest. Wow, what a petty thing. And it goes without saying that these leaders completely missed the miracle and power of God in this man's life. In any case, the healed man quickly throws Jesus under the bus when he's cornered by them, and he blames Jesus for making him carry his mat on the Sabbath and break a commandment. After his healing, right, after this miracle, this man somehow remains ungrateful. How could this be? How is it that his legs and life are restored, yet he remains unchanged? I think the problem for this man really just lies deeper. The problem isn't his legs. The problem is his mentality, his belief, his faith, his spirit. Moments after the healed man sold Jesus out to the religious leaders, he runs into Jesus, right? Who says, "Hey, see, you're well again. Stop sinning or something worse may happen to you." Now, Jesus' response rings a little harsh at first take, especially in a time and era when people believe that people's physical or cognitive, mental, emotional issues were the cause of some sin in their life. But Jesus isn't talking about that. The entire arc of John's gospel is about belief in Jesus as Messiah. Here, Jesus is talking about the man's sin of unbelief and indifference toward God. This shows up in the man's initial response to Jesus, the absence of gratitude in the man's indifference toward Jesus. So on this, I've got words to you from theologian Elizabeth Johnson. She writes at length saying, "The man, though made well, seems blind to the power and presence of God in Jesus, and more concerned about his standing with those in positions of earthly power. He wastes no time in reporting Jesus' identity to the authorities, presumably knowing that they will turn their judgment on Jesus. The good that Jesus does is met not with faith or gratitude, but with persecution. Yet Jesus continues doing the life-giving work of the Father, regardless of the consequences." One might wonder why Jesus chose this particular man to heal out of all the people lying at the pool that day. It seems like he could have made a better choice. Yet here we see that the compassion and healing power of Jesus are not reserved only for those who are deserving, for those whose faith is great and who respond to healing by believing and following Jesus. Certainly Jesus heals such people also. But here Jesus heals one whose lack of faith leads him to cooperate with those who persecute Jesus. John's gospel does not answer the question of why certain people are healed and others are not. This passage makes it clear that healing is not a matter of having enough faith, as if that could be measured. That is not how Jesus operates. Clearly, Jesus does not heal for the benefits to himself in gratitude or praise or devotion. He heals people simply because this is the work of the Father. In an unequitable world, in an ungrateful world, in our sometimes unbelieving hearts and ungrateful spirits, Jesus is still at work. Jesus' love for us doesn't change, and his desire to make us well does not change. But where is our spirit? What does our spirit say? How does it answer the question, do you want to be well? And how too will we respond and approach the world? Will we, in the same spirit of love and generosity, kneel beside the hurting and the calloused and reach out with tenderness and grace, knowing that it might not come back? The same grace and love that we have received. This is the way of Jesus, and it's the way to life. Jesus is asking us if we want to be well. Jesus is asking us about our faith. Jesus is taking inventory of our spirit. And at the same time, Jesus is inviting us to notice, to see whose spirit is downcast, to who has given up, to who feels like there's no more hope left. He's asking us to kneel down beside them as well and bring the love and the grace and the healing of the Father. Amen.